Welcome back. You're watching The Fix with me, Karima Brown. Let's get straight to it. Helena, you know, often when someone is COVID-19 positive and they're home, people can take care of them. But sometimes people get really sick and they have to go to hospital. We've read horrible stories that, you know, you say goodbye to your loved one thinking that they've got a tight chest and they come back in a body bag. And of course, that period between them leaving you and coming back as a corpse, you have very little contact. We've seen in other countries people call, people say goodbye through video phone, but in South Africa we haven't had that. We've had situations where people just have no information. How do families deal with this? How do they, you know, when they decide to send someone to a hospital, how do they prepare emotionally for knowing that that might well be the last time they see their loved one?
Well, that sounds so very, very difficult, and it is the experience that people are having. And I think people are being extraordinarily kind, and we have to take off our hats to nurses and caregivers in hospital who are often using their own phones to make it possible for people to connect with one another. I think we're seeing extraordinary acts of human kindness. And then I think when you're at home, then what is it that you can do is sit and try and connect with those that you love. And there's something called the field. It's what Mapi was talking about, attunement, that there is a belief that when we all sit together and pray together, meditate together, that we're not only helping ourselves, but that energy is being supportive of the other person. I mean, how many times do you think of someone who lives perhaps in another city, another country, and later on that day they phone you or you get an email? So I think that we can't underestimate the power of our thoughts being transmitted. And so to be able to sit and give time and be thinking of that person and sending them our best energy, but also being careful to look after ourselves, that we don't fall into depression. And I think the self-care at this time of looking after ourselves to be resilient, whether it's doing exercise at home, you've got stairs, you're going up and down, but there's a whole, and being careful to sleep enough. There is a whole thing about one's own self-care so that you are able then to be there for others.
Gonda, let me bring
Gonda,
you...
this was your situation, hey?
Yes, this is what I wanted to ask you, Gonda. I mean, there is a sense that when you are isolated, when you can't speak to anybody, when you can't touch anybody, that you can get lost, that you can get depressed. How important is it for people to know that it's okay to not be okay?
I think very important. One, need to, as Helena says, look after yourself, but also little acts of human kindness. So my friends dropping off soup for me, touched me, sending me books on a daily basis, making sure that they just check in with a small note on WhatsApp saying, how are you today? All those helped to make the isolation feel less lonely. And I think that those are important things that we need to do for one another at this time. A nurse phoning me the day before my aunt died, and me being able to see her and tell her that I love her was an important part of closure for me when she did eventually pass on. And I think it can't be underestimated as part. We need new rituals for closure. We need new ways of mourning. So the solidarity candle that some people have started on Facebook, for instance, that I see many people are part of, that ritual becomes part of the mourning process. I've also heard of people doing drive-by, so people standing at the window and cars driving by to wave at the person in isolation. Those are also things that we are starting to change our rituals and starting to look at innovative ways of making connections between people.
Mapi, I want to give you the last word. I'm part of the candlelight evening. Every night at 7 o'clock we light a candle, and I must say it's really focused me. But we come from communities where rituals are important. In my case, my aunt couldn't be buried by her sons. The funeral prayer had to happen in the street, and they couldn't wash the body, which is an integral part. How do you get communities to let go of age-old customs that help them in distressing times and make them understand that COVID-19 requires us to behave differently?
I think, Karima, is the messaging. I think initially when we said you can no longer attend funeral, it was an instructive messaging, and we needed to say, we're unable to have more people at funerals. What can you do in order to grieve with the family? We needed to give people tools because we took away something that was very important to them, but there were no tools that were offered as part of messaging that said, okay, you can now do this instead of attending the funeral. I think that's one thing. But I think what is critical, Karima, as the last point, is to have necessary conversation now before you even get admitted to hospital. We've had a lot of incidences where people, once they're admitted to hospital, you can't then start asking them for their password. You can't then start asking them if their paperwork is in order. There's a tool that is on www.lovelegacydignity.com, which we call checklist for checking out. You need to do that exercise because we cannot have a situation where we leave there our loved one with the bureaucracy of paperwork and with double pain of not knowing how to wrap up your estate. We need to have this conversation. As we stated, there are love affirming because you actually get to live with intention and get to think about your legacy and get to think about how you're going to show your loved ones that you will love them even after the end of your time on earth.
Thank you so very much there to Mapi Mhlangu, Helena Dolney, and of course Gonda Perez, speaking about mortality in a life-affirming way, something that all of us are facing as the pandemic, of course, rages in our country. Well, you've had your fix for the week. See you again next Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.